Do you have any wisdom of the day from Arthur to share? I keep thinking about Arthur, the theme song and all that.
Oh man, I don't know. Just every day, just gotta be kind, especially after coaching all these like third graders who are probably like Arthur's age. Um, I got all the parents coming up to me afterwards, like, "Oh, you're so patient with the kids." I feel like inside, I'm like, I'm going crazy.
But you have the appearance of being patient,
Yeah,
which goes a long ways.
always give
People
them a nice
appreciate it.
pat on the back. Good job.
You're doing great.
It's just crazy how, at least at that age, a lot of them don't want to be on the court on a Saturday morning.
Oh
Their
yeah,
parents kind of make them, and then the parents are really into it, but for like the long term benefit of the kids, it's just 10 kids just running around back and forth just isn't really beneficial for them, just because they're not really learning anything. And even when you try and teach kids, it's like you tell them something, they just totally forget.
yeah. They're not unless maybe they're passionate about the subject. Then they're
Yeah,
going to retain it maybe more.
but I
Yeah.
think even like the biggest thing is um I forget what the term is, but it's basically like the coaches, and most of them are just volunteers anyway, so no hurt on them. But it's almost like they're playing a video game and with the controller, but they're more audio. So they're like shoot, pass, go up, go down, shoot,
Oh, okay.
and that's you just hear that the whole game, and it's just like.
Interesting.
But the crazy thing is, if you were to ask most, if not all, the 10 kids that are on the court, hey, can you hear what your coach is saying, what they're telling you? They're like, no. All that
Can't even hear
noise.
it.
I mean, they just can't like process,
Ah,
you know, two or three people, two or three coaches yelling at them, telling them what to do. Five players on the bench telling them shoot, pass. Audience, parents, members are telling them what to do. Hey, go do this. And they're just like, I don't know.
that's too much input.
Yeah.
It's like, how can you even process that?
But the thing is, like, the thing is, kids are so smart that if you teach them a game, like step by step, they'll learn it, and they can keep repeating that. But just the way that they teach these kids at this level, and they're just, they get like an hour or something a week, which is not enough time. But then they throw them out on the court with referees and a whole crowd, and then they're getting a little bit nervous and all these different factors. Um, I just feel bad for them because I'm trying to like tell them what to do, but I know that you know that they're like they have all this energy and they're looking at me, and I'm like, do this, and they're like, okay, and then like 2 seconds later they repeat their mistake. So it's so crazy that like in my mind I'm like, oh, like this is just like we just need to cut this whole thing and just scrap it. Do what the Europeans do, which is just play 3-on-3 half court rather than 5-on-5 full court. Just because like usually like maybe one or two players on the team are really good and they know how to like dribble enough to where they can like make their own baskets. But usually like three or two of the kids never get to touch the ball. So they have like they're just out there just running up and back and forth. And then when they finally get the ball, they don't know what to do. But with 3-on-3, you kind of have to include everybody. Like there's not a place to hide as with like 5-on-5. You can kind of just like if there's a kid who just like kind of wanders around, it's fine. Like nothing bad is going to happen compared to like if they were to do that at like the 5th grade level, where if you're just walking around, looking at the grass or picking flowers like some kids do during like soccer and stuff, it's just like a whole different story. It's pretty funny though. It is very hilarious.
Yeah. So I'm sitting here with Donte Lamar. This is a part 2 of our first conversation. A little bit of time has passed. That was like end of December, I think, that we talked. It was before New Year's, right?
I would say like maybe like early mid
Oh, it
December.
was before. Yeah, it was mid-December. Okay.
Yeah, because I went out to go see Joe Gatto up in Portland. I think that was like the 14th or 15th of December.
Cool. Yeah, you've been up for a couple of Portland shows.
Yeah, I went and saw Joe. Yeah, in Portland mid December. Then I went and saw Tina Fey.
The
The
SNL thing?
yeah,
Yeah,
the
how was
more
that?
the trip there was fun. It was
Yeah.
since
You took the train.
yeah, it was so Friday night. We're like, yeah, this is gonna happen, and we were gonna take the later train to because we were just going to go to the 8 o'clock show, and there was a 3:30 one too. But the night before, we're like, well, might as well just buy tickets to the 3:30 and just go up for that, and then just go to the next show too, because a lot of people just couldn't come in at that point.
Yeah.
They were already kind of shutting things down.
Yeah.
So we got up at like, I don't know, 7 in the morning and walked to the train station, which is about a mile. And by that point, it wasn't really that bad outside. It's like a little bit slippery.
Uh-huh.
But actually, like on the train tracks were, I guess, frozen. So it was already delayed like a half hour, but we got like maybe a quarter mile down the track. And it stopped, and we were there for like 3 or 4 hours, just like
Oh
waiting
my
for them
goodness.
to like
Wow.
de-ice the tracks and let us out. And the weird thing was, like, we were like right beside the jail, and if I knew like that the time frame, I probably could have gone and taught a couple of classes at the jail, and then just like hopped on the train and wouldn't have missed a beat. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think just like going through those types of like things, because like I said, we were on the track like waiting for like 2 or 3 hours, and then it finally started moving. Probably had like another delay eventually, but it took us like an extra 3 or 4 hours to get to Portland. And then when we got there, we walked to our hotel, checked in, and then started walking over to the Moda Center. Yeah, and it was kind of snowing, but it was crazy because it looked almost exactly like a year after the pandemic had started. It looked just like that up in Portland. It was just like no one was there.
Ghost town.
All the businesses were closed, and it was just like,
it's like a flashback.
yeah, like nothing was open. Like we couldn't find like really any restaurants or anything, and we didn't really plan to. We were just like, hey, we'll go up there. We'll have some food at a place in Portland, just because we don't get up there a lot, and so we kind of want to go out and enjoy whatever vegan options Portland has. But nothing was open. Really at all. I think Whole Foods might have been open the next day, but it was very few and far between. But yeah, we got to the Moda Center for the 3:30 show, and it eventually filled up pretty nice. But I was just so excited just to see Tina Fey in person. I never thought I'd have that opportunity.
Oh, nice.
I've been a big fan of hers ever since I went to college in like 2006, and I mean, just loved everything she did on SNL and then 30 Rock. And I just read her book the week leading up to that. So I was like all about Tina Fey at that point. And obviously Amy Poehler, she's kind of like, you kind of don't think about one without the other. But it was a really good show. They did a lot of improv. And then I think they did maybe like 2 or 3 scenes of actual like improv, like asking suggestions from the audiences about where they are, what they're doing, and things like that, and kind of just rolling with it from there. Kind of telling like how they met, and then like their transition from Second City in Chicago to SNL. And then they did like a modified weekend update of like updated things, like talking about the Oscars or whatever, the Grammys, whatever just happened. And then they brought out a surprise guest, Maya Rudolph, and she came on as Whitney Houston, which is really funny just because she's like so over the top with and like Tina and Amy could barely even keep like a straight face. It was so awesome.
That's awesome. So it was a good show.
Yeah, it was really good. And I think the most inspiring thing to me was just to see Tina and Amy do stand up. Because as far as I know, neither of them are known for stand-up, but that was something that they wanted to do during that tour. So yeah, Amy started, and she was just kind of just standing up there and just kind of just talking, basically. And she was like, yeah, I'm not really like a stand-up person, and some of these jokes may not land. I'm making a joke up like on the spot. I hope it works. But when Tina came out, you could tell that she's like more of like a perfectionist, and like she maybe like wouldn't do something unless she had practiced it over and over again. But you could tell that she had actually put a lot of work into her stand-up routine. Just the way that she was like walking around the floor, the way her jokes kind of flew one into the other. And she had said that she had studied the greats like Chris Rock, Chappelle, and it seemed like maybe she had like some like Kevin Hart or Tracy Morgan in there too. But she was talking about like how expensive it is to like upkeep her womanly private parts and things like that. Trying to keep this a E-free episode until I drop that first F-bomb.
Yeah, you know, sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't. Most of them I've had to put the E on there.
For sure. But yeah, she was just like, you know, probably like in the tone of like Chris Rock or something, but she was just like saying like how much money and time and pleasure she had put into her private parts, and then like the private parts of like her daughters and her mom who were living with them. So I don't want to repeat it because I don't want to get it wrong and then, you know, have someone come after me. But
yeah, funny in that like TMI kind of way.
Yeah. So it was like, I just think just like seeing her, you know, not be known for stand up, but then come out and just crush it. It's just like so inspiring because like, I think everyone always thinks like, maybe like too old to start a new career or try something new. And she's 50, 53 years old. And, you know, I think she probably just started this like last year. So just to see how far she's come and see how comfortable she is on stage. Cause I think we were talking about it, like being a stand-up comic compared to like being in like an improv group or something, you're out there by yourself. So there's no one, like if you mess up, you kind of have to pick yourself back up and get back on track rather than my scene partner is going to help me out here if they see me struggling.
Right. And you just don't have anyone to riff off of.
Yeah.
So you're just completely having to self-generate. I don't think that we got into the actual ending of your trip on the 2014 Furthur bus tour.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you about what that felt like toward the end and as you were landing back into everyday life, and where did you go from that point?
So as we're making just like a really quick trip from the East Coast to the West Coast for the last party in San Francisco. And at that point, I obviously we know that it's ending within, you know, 3 or 4 days. And I think everyone can start feeling the emotions that were about to come from, you know, being on the road for 2 months and then, you know, this time next week, we're not going to be around each other. And who knows when the next time we're all going to see each other again would be. But I knew what I was doing after the trip. I had worked previously on a farm in Northern California. When I moved out to Denver, we were working at a, you know, like a trim store or something, but just basically just like working for different dispensaries around Denver. And one of my friends was like, "Hey, my cousin knows someone who wants to pay us a lot more, you know, for what we're doing, and it's going to be in California." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." I was like the only person in the whole job that was like, "Yes," and they were like, "All right, cool." And so I think the summer or the winter before the Furthur bus trip, I went and did that for like a month and was able to like, you know, keep myself living for like 3 months or so. But then the next year we did the same thing and he was going to come pick me up right after this trip had happened. And it was so funny because I was like texting him on our way back to the West Coast. And I was like, yeah, I'm on this Furthur tour right now. And he was like, "Oh, you're with the band?" And I was like, "Oh, he actually knows what Furthur is." So I was like actually excited that he knew what it was. Cause if I was like throughout that whole trip, if I was in like a town or something that one of my old friends from like college were in, I would like, "Hey, I'm on this crazy bus thing. Like, you know, you can come by if you want, or if I can stop by or something." But most of them had no idea what it was. And only like one of my friends actually came out to the bus, my friend Kermit from Maryland. And he was just like so like shocked by like what he saw on the bus. And he was like really into it. And I was like, you know, there's a few people that actually responded that way. Most of my friends from, Maryland, they kind of responded the opposite way, and kind of was like, I assume they probably looked it up on Google, and they was like, all right,
Like,
he's not on early, he's off our radar.
does not compute for whatever reason.
Yeah. Um. So so yeah, I always had all these friends who didn't know what the bus was, but I was intrigued that he actually knew. But we get to San Francisco, and it's a very small crew, just because no one rode in the bus back with Zane. It was just Zane, Derek, and like one of the, I think Matt or Puds, one of the film TV crew, and so everyone else was just like in follow cars. Me and Thumpa, the guy who picked me up. So we stopped at my place in Denver and kind of like regrouped. That's like my first time back. I was supposed to be back like a month and a half before, and I was just like, I'm going to stop back for a night and kind of regroup, get some things. And then when we finally got to California, I actually broke my phone. Like as soon as we got there, like I think I like got out of the car and it just like dropped on the ground.
Oh no.
And it just like shattered, and I was like, oh geez, like this is just like not the best time, because
Yeah.
I gotta stay in communication with the guy.
Right.
So I think like the first day that we were there, and they were doing all like the San Francisco sightseeing things, like going over the bridge, going to Golden Gate Park, going to the shore. I was taking all these buses down into Chinatown to get my phone fixed, and then had to wait like an hour or two while they fixed it before I can go rejoin everyone. But I meet back up with everyone on, I think now it's called Love on Hate, but it used to be called Jammin' on Hate.
I've seen that story. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So Ben Jammin, I guess it would have been originally named after, he was a really big supporter of the bus, and obviously he was a deadhead and had hung around with Keezy, and he was always telling stories about like New Year's Eve parties with Keezy and things like that on the farm. So
Fun.
he seemed like that cool uncle that you really just like wanted to hang around all the time and like just gravitate towards, because he like kind of like how I am now. He was like always like decked out in tie-dye.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy how like intimidating that is. Like if you're not like from the scene, it's just like this guy looks like so comfortable, so cool, almost like, I don't want to say thuggish, but like kind of has like that like essence of like you don't really want to mess with him, but he seems so cool that you kind of like want to know him and know what he's about, and like, oh, why you dress so cool? And I mean, in his tie-dyes were just so legendary. And so so I go back there, and I would say maybe 10 pranksters from the previous 2 months who didn't drive back to the coast with us. They had all flew in for that final weekend. So there's a lot of like, hey, how you been? How's, and for me, it's like, oh, I saw you here and you made it all the way through. That's so cool. And it's like, it's really cool that they were like always like rooting for me to like have finished the trip, because they had known my story. Some of them knew me like a week into the trip. Some of them knew me like a month into the trip. But, every time I met them, or meet new pranksters, it's always like, all right, so like, what's your like story of how you got to the bus? And it's always like, oh, well, I quit my job. And, Puds and Colby, they're always, I guess, like the hype man. They're like, he's the best. He quit his job. He's blah, blah, blah. He does this, blah, blah, blah. He's on stage. So it's like, it's automatically that like, not pressure, but like that story that like that's probably been like exaggerated times a million with pranksters, just because they're, one, you never know if they're serious or not, and two, they're just always down for a good time. So
Yep.
And then the first of the 2 nights in San Francisco, we go to a little bar and go see just a dead cover band, and then I got on stage for my final time for China Cat, I Know You Rider, which is always fun. And it's obviously it's more fun when, one, it's like a small venue where it's like more of the pranksters rather than just like
more intimate. Yeah.
And it's not because like we didn't like hanging out with people, but like for like where the stage, like if I'm on stage right here, they're like first, second row. So they're reaching on stage, and you can kind of play back and forth. And I
Fun.
have so much flexibility because obviously I'm not playing anything, so it's
Right.
like more of like, what can I do to like make them like respond and things like that.
Yeah, I watched the documentary and I loved it, by the way. Like they did such a good job with the editing, the way they captured the vibe really came through. And I was
Yeah.
watching some of your performances and the look of joy and in the flow completely is what I picked up on. Like, yeah, I could see why like you would go up there on the stage and just like amplify the vibe and people's excitement when they see you because you just had this like joy that was emanating from you.
Yeah.
That was really beautiful.
And just like I mean, obviously these bands are playing Grateful Dead music, which is just all improv. So you
Yep.
never know where it's going to go.
So being able to roll with that, you were
Yeah.
able to just like adapt.
And it's like you have to kind of like be open to all possibilities.
Hmm.
Because I know like when I was like listening to your last show about like improving, and sometimes you like go into something like, oh, I want to do this, and like I can't wait to be able to like nail that move or something like that, or like nail that line.
Start to overthink.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah, and
like you're
plan.
just like waiting for this like opportunity rather than just like letting the opportunity just come to you.
Yeah, yeah, there's a big difference there.
Yeah, and I remember one time. I think this was like during when we were like showing the documentary like a couple years later, and we're in Kenosha, and I'm on stage with I think it's just like two guitarists, and like I'm a pretty flexible person. Like obviously I do yoga and things like that, but I do remember just like one time like we're playing like face to face, and then I start to lean forward, and then he kind of leans backwards, and then he leans forward, and I feel like I go almost like parallel to like my back's probably like parallel to the ground, and then just like as like like within like in sync with the music, like as I'm coming up, like the music's like building up to like this big like impactful moment, and then as soon as I get straight up and then hit one lick, it's just like, and that's like the, I'm not a music person, but whatever that like height of the song is, that just like
Yeah,
when it all like actually comes together.
crescendo.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. That sounds like I think I might have seen a clip of that, like might have been in like one of the trailers or something for the
Yeah.
documentary. What was the name of the documentary again for people that want to check it out?
Going further.
Going further. And
Yeah.
what's the best way for people to find it? Just search it on
I
online.
just should be able to just www.goingfurther to use
Okay.
furthur.com.
And then they can, yeah,
Yeah,
figure
you
out how to
should be
rent
able
it.
to see or the website, and then from there you should be able to
Perfect.
buy it on Vimeo. I think it
Yeah,
is.
I think that's how I did it. Was a Vimeo rental. And it
Yeah.
was pretty affordable.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely worth it. Yeah. I was just impressed at the way they edited it. Like the editing is such a big part of these
Yeah.
documentaries and how it shifts it and what vibe comes through. And however they did it, it was a way that I felt like the purity of the vibe of the actual bus tour like came through
Yeah.
really well.
And it just flowed really well
Yeah.
too. I mean, I think when I did show it to a few friends, I think the one scene that they like really like, and I was like sitting behind them and they were like sitting on the floor. Um, but I forget if it's Babs or George, and they're talking about like everything is like a psychedelic, whereas like you see things that are like really good, really positive, and then almost in an instant you can see things that are just like tragic and bad.
Right.
And then I think they like merge into like a picture of like it's like a tree, and then on one side of the tree it's just like all this anarchy, on the other side it's like very peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's like one of the things that like really like stood out just because how true it actually is. Like, I mean, I guess just like this ice storm that we just had, like, I mean, from my perspective, I was just like, it's just so beautiful, it's just, there's
There
silence.
was a lot of beauty in it. Yeah, absolutely. From a visual standpoint, and then just that deep silence, and also it's a felt experience of people are not out in the world transacting as much, and it's just everyone is being still. So the
Yeah.
energy in Eugene was just super calm in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But then like, you turn on the news and then you see someone with
just
a tree in their house, and then,
devastation
yeah.
all around. Yeah,
So it's, I mean, but that's just like, and I'm sure, just with psychedelics, you have the same thing where it's like some things are just, you're just nothing but smiles. Everything is 100% fine. And then, and then within an instant, tragedy strikes. But it's like how you react to those tragedies, and how you allow everyone else to react around you.
Yeah, and with psychedelics, it's like a sped up, like where you might go into a tragedy in your mind in that way, and then
Yeah.
but you have the chance to work through it and then come out the other side and get back to
Yeah.
that flow. Yeah,
And I
writing's
could
good.
tell, like, when we're just on the train with, like, you know, obviously, like, just anyone from all walks of lives, like, I think the train was like the biggest mode of transportation for people, just because they obviously didn't want to drive their cars and risk that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sitting there very content, just like waiting for, just for them to tell us that our train is here. But other people are like freaking out, and I remember being one of those people. Just because it's just hard to, like, you always want to try to um, solve how the future is going to happen based on whatever is in your mind from the past, rather than just, like, I don't know, when we were like sitting on a train for, I mean, between the 2 days of going up and back to Portland, we probably sat on the train. We were probably supposed to be on it for 6 hours, but ended up maybe like 15 hours, like,
Oh
on a
wow.
train.
Yeah.
But it was like, I didn't say it out loud, but I was like, man, this is really cool because, like, we're always gonna remember that story.
It's so outside the norm. It's
Yeah,
such a unique, novel experience.
yeah.
So being able to appreciate it and be in the moment with it instead of being like, oh God, this delay,
I mean, it was
Which,
so cool because, like, um, our when we were coming back to Eugene, our train was like, it was like 20 minutes away, and they kept saying that, like, they're like, oh yeah, it'll be here in 10 20 minutes tops, and they said that for like 3 hours. And then they're like, okay, it's just not going to come.
keeps
Or
getting
no, when it
pushed
does get
out.
here, it's not going to keep going. So everyone who's going to Eugene, maybe for like 10 minutes, they were like, all right, so there's going to be no train in Eugene. And then I was like, oh, okay. So maybe we have to figure out something, stay in Portland another night, or maybe try and find a bus. But then, like, 10 minutes later, they're like, so the other train that's going to LA that was coming through here, if you're on the Eugene train, you can just get on that. So I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. But then we get on there, and it's one of those trains where there's like a restaurant and things in there. And
Fancy.
huh?
Fancy.
Kind of had a Monopoly guy standing outside letting us in. I say, I just got a. Oh, I was trying to think of a Monopoly joke, but I can't
It's
remember the
okay.
names of the railroads. Reading.
Oh, what were some of the railroads? I remember Park Place. That's not a railroad.
That's crazy because I know a lot of my high school friends would be really mad because we used to play Monopoly every
Lion
day in AP
was
chemistry.
it Lion something? Lionel? No.
I think it was B&B.
B&B. That's R&R?
Gosh.
B&B, R&R.
For some reason,
What are the Monopoly? Yeah.
I went from Monopoly to Settlers of Catan like 4 years ago, and I've just been playing a lot of Catan. But, like, Monopoly, I don't even know. Reading Railroad sounds right, but then I'm thinking Reading Rainbow.
I have good memories of reading Rainbow growing up. I watched that a lot.
Do you remember Drum Rope for Heart? Did you have that at your school?
Drummer for Heart?
I just saw it at
No, I don't think so.
the elementary school I was reffing at. But Jump Rope for Heart was like this, like, little fundraiser that we used to do in elementary school where you, like, jump rope for as long as you could.
Oh, Jump Rope for Heart. Yes, I do remember that now. Yep.
It's like this. That took me back when I saw that sign. I was like, I remember just, like, trying to get to like 45 minutes, especially, like, just being like, one of, like, the better athletes to, like, those, like, situations like the physical fitness test or anything like that in elementary school. It was like, oh, I really want to do really good on this. But Jump Rope for Heart was just like, that was the hardest one.
It's a cool one because it really encouraged exercise. There was also another one, the reading one with Pizza Hut. Do you remember
Yeah.
that? For the deep dish pizzas. It's like, I don't know. That's a little questionable, like deep dish pizzas at Pizza Hut. I don't know. Pretty bad ingredient sourcing on that. But yeah, I got people to read, got kids to read.
Yeah. I think that was like my second or third grade. And I remember winning a few of those. But I think maybe just like read like 10 books and you get a free pizza or something. But I think there was like one time where there was like we did, whoever like the top 10 or something, you get your name draw of a hat, but then you get to go to Pizza Hut, make a pizza, and then watch it go through the oven and stuff.
Ooh, that's
So
interactive.
yeah, I
I
got to
like
do
that.
that. I think I cheated though.
I think I did too. I can't remember what I did, but
I think
back
for that I was like, yeah, I read like 50 books in 3 weeks or something.
there wasn't much accountability on like actually proving that you read the book. I remember it's pretty much honor system there.
Yeah.
But yeah. But yeah, getting back to how you landed back. So you went on a bit of a trip to get out to California, San Francisco to be exact, and then from there, so you go from San Francisco out to the farm that you were going to work on.
Yep. Um, yeah, the party of the last night wasn't really that crazy. Most of us just kind of hung outside with the bus all night, kind of just like our last night with the bus. And then we go back to Benjamin's warehouse where we were sleeping at, and we just kind of had like our final good night. And at the end of the movie, you see that like Derek looks at me and he's like, you joined the bus, on August 11th, and it's October 5th or something. And it was just like a lot of crying, a lot of like emotion
Mm,
that night, just because we didn't know if we were going to see each other. Um, and then at like 6 a.m. in the morning when everyone's asleep and kind of like everyone's kind of just like winding down, my friend comes and picks me up. He sees the bus and he's like, oh, like looks at it for a while, and then kind of just say, I give my final hug and kiss to the bus and kind of get in the car and head to, I think Arcadia or something like that.
mm-hmm.
But it was just like, I felt like at that point I was like in a movie, I had already, my head was like already big from this air guitar thing. And,
It's so funny to go through those experiences where that happens. I had one that happened in my life too, and it's just funny to look back on it and be like, oh yeah, it's fun though.
yeah, it's like one of those things where it's such a good story in
Yeah.
that like, there's just so many layers to like, I know probably what I would say like the best summer of my life, just
Mm,
because it
yeah.
was just like so unknown from like day by day, where you didn't know where you were going, what you were doing.
Every day is completely different. It makes it
Yeah,
hard to feel stuck or stagnant
yeah.
when you're in that flow. So cool.
The thing about it is it's very addicting,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, well, I think this is the way people are meant to live, like
Yeah.
free, like just the feeling of being free, where you're not like, you get up in the morning, you're like, oh, I gotta go to work in order to pay for this house that I'm staying in.
Right.
And obviously we have to be able to, I was still having to pay my bills back at home and things for a
Sure.
place that I wasn't staying, but at the same time it was just like waking up with like a sense of adventure, a sense of like, who are we going to meet today? Is it going to be, Timothy Leary's son? Is it going to be like an Alex Gray or an Allison Gray? Is it going to be, oh man, why am I blanking this name? Oh, I'm going to cry. Cutler. Um,
Sam Cutler.
Sam Cutler. Yes. God. Oh, I'm so rude. Sorry, Sam. Even though you're still not here. But I mean, I never thought in a million years I'd meet that person in particular.
Oh, I didn't. So yeah, he's a character.
Yeah.
He is. I've seen interviews with him. He is really funny.
I'd say, and I don't think I talked to him that much. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, when you see these people, there's obviously there's 14 or 15 pranksters, and obviously the filmmakers want to be talking to Sam, try to get as much stuff on tape just to kind of
Right.
get his perspective on everything. And since he was kind of one of the biggest or most popular like managers, Rolling Stones, Grateful Dead, just like having just being around him for for knowing the people that he was around, was really cool, and just like the way he presented himself. And
Yeah. Totally.
but I mean, I guess like when you sign up for the bus trip, they were like, we may have celebrities, we may not. Them being on the bus may kick you off the bus and all this stuff. And after like, we met John Kay, the week after, at the 2 or 3 days after I said I quit my job and I'm on the bus, we met John Kay. who is like the Jerry Garcia of DSO when they began. The Grateful Dead cover band, probably.
Dark DSO being Dark Star Orchestra, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm not sure why I would say that without saying those three words, because when they told us we were going to a DSO show, so I think the first night of California, like we get there at night, and DSO's playing somewhere in San Francisco, and they're like, "Yeah, we're going to this DSO show," and I was like, "Oh snap, we're going to a USO show." That's the only thing I could like. I didn't know what DSO was,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Oh, why are we going to a USO show?" Like that's just so weird. But I mean, at that point, I had never seen them. I just got into the Grateful Dead, obviously. But yeah, it was so crazy, and the weird. I was like trying to get on stage with them that night, and there was this guy from the like that was working with the band or maybe with the venue that was like, I think like had a crush on one of the pranksters that we were with, and we're like, "Hey, you go talk to him and try and get Donte on stage or something."
Nice.
And one thing happened, and then like we were in the venue. I maybe saw Dark Star Orchestra for like maybe 2 seconds, and then Colby or Matt were like, "Hey, come out here, come get your guitar, and then we'll get you in." And then when we came out, the guy had disappeared, or he just like kind of like flaked out, so we couldn't go in the back entrance. So then I'm trying to go back in the front door with this Guitar Hero guitar, trying to explain to the people why I'm back. And they're like, "No, we can't let you in now. You left." And I'm like, it's just one of those situations.
It sounds like a fun and exciting project of like, how do we get Donte up onto the stage to do
Yeah.
air guitar?
And it was so like sometimes it was just works out like so well. Sometimes like I remember when I first got on with like Terrapin Flyer, and they probably only talked to like one person or like no one in the band, but they're like trying to like push or trying to walk on stage and kind of get like a like, "What are you doing here?" from like, and I'm like, I just like turn around, just walk off. I'm like, I don't want to be that guy. And then we're standing on like stage right, and I have like the guitar in hand, and Puds is behind me. He's like about to tell me like when to go up. And then they're like some pedestrian in the crowd is like trying to push, like literally push me on stage.
Really?
And I was like, this is just like kind of getting a little weird sometimes, but it was just like situations like that where it was like really hard for me to like get comfortable, at least like initially. But then obviously when I get on stage and like I try not to intrude on their area or their like very limited space, then it started to get a little bit fun. But then obviously there's like bands that I didn't know what music they were going to play, and it was just getting like really, even sometimes that was hard.
Yeah.
But I think one time we were in Chicago, and it was like one of those improv things. So I was like, "Oh, I want to do this one move," and it was like with a band who didn't play Grateful Dead music. I think they were playing like the Beatles or something, and it was like one of those one times where I actually did what I wanted to do, and I didn't really like. I wasn't really as like theatric as I normally was, but I think I was like playing the guitar behind me.
Okay.
And then it was so nice because it was like exactly how I envisioned it. And as soon as like I knew that the song was like coming up to like that big point, I like just with one motion just swung it back from behind me right into like my left hand. And it was like, it was so flawless. It was so cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Love that.
And it's like I kind of miss having those like opportunities because I can't really play a real guitar. So the chances of me just getting on stage and doing something like that again is just like very narrow. Because then I have to explain this whole story.
Yeah, we got to see if there's some Eugene shows we can get you on stage, maybe at the McDonald's or something.
Yeah, but I think that's like that's what I was saying. It kind of feels like a movie or something because like it's like the beginning of a movie where like I got in the car with a guy after he picks me up the last day of the bus tour, and like the first thing he says is like, "Oh, so like what would you do this summer? Like how'd you get involved with that?" And it's just like if that was a movie, that would be like the beginning of me like, "Oh, well, this is how this happened," and step day one all the way to like day 53 or 56 or something like that. But it's just it's so cool that he was like, I think we were probably in the car for 2 hours and I was just talking the whole time about what I was doing that whole summer. And he had already a pretty good amount of respect for me, but I think just like telling someone all these things that you've done, that if if other people had the chance, there's maybe a chance that they may not have just pulled the trigger and been like, I'm just going to go back to Colorado after a week and, maybe try and come back for like a festival, a month away, or, just wait it out. But, you know, some of those opportunities just don't come along, or, at least that opportunity probably won't ever come along again for a lot of people, if anyone. And I would have been so sad, and probably wouldn't even like want to converse with people from the bus had I left and like given up that opportunity to like really see you.
Yeah, that's an inspiring story for people that might have something like that come up in their future, to be able to realize the importance of that moment and that choice of taking that leap versus doing the thing that's like practical or
Mm-hmm.
responsible. And it's a balance, of course. Like you said, you were still paying your bills back home and like keeping your life going. You weren't completely dropping out in like some sort of truly irresponsible way, which is another path that people can choose too. But
Yeah.
yeah, it seems like you did it in a pretty smart, balanced way. But you also had to take that leap and like have that confidence in
Yeah.
that moment.
But I mean, and the weird thing is that like people know that, and I mean, they still just make the same choices that they do, but at least they like acknowledge when you that taking that leap, or that like that big change in your life is um was the right decision, or not. I guess right and wrong decisions are a bad way to put it, but it was a good choice to make, rather than not doing anything at all. Because when I used to go back like regularly to Maryland where I grew up, and then I'd go to the local bar or something and just go see old friends from high school, and a majority of the time they'd be like, oh, I wish I had the courage to like just move to Colorado like you did, or go move somewhere else. And I say, yeah, I know, and I say like, oh yeah, thanks, but I really want to say like, well, you can do it too. And I mean, it's almost as simple as just saying I want to do it, and depending on like what you're willing to sacrifice in order to get it. And for me, I'd sacrifice a lot to be able to feel whole or to feel free, rather than trying to make other people feel a certain way, like my family or something. Just
Yeah,
because I know it's hard for.
based on the expectations people have about you and what you should be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and it's I think the biggest thing for me when it comes to like taking those leaps is that I really just wanted to just always do something different. And I mean, I I didn't travel a lot. Like growing up, I'm from the country, so like I had never been. I think we went to New York City for a field trip once in like sixth grade, and that was like really like my only like familiarity with like any type of city life. Like we rarely, if ever, went to Baltimore, or like Washington D.C. unless it was like a field trip. But as soon as like I got my license in high school and I found a friend that like lived away, I was always hanging out with that friend. His name is Aiken. He lived like maybe like 2 hours from me, and I met him through FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America, and it was just like always just so fun to be like. I always felt like the coolest just because I was always just like doing other stuff rather than just hanging out, where we always grew up. But as soon as I got that freedom of like a car and I was just like driving, where I wanted to go, that just opened up so many more doors for me. Just because I was like willing to take that risk. And like I said, like what was I willing to sacrifice? So for example, like to go see Tina Fey, I would have sacrificed like 10 times of what I went through just to go see her. Like an ice storm really wasn't going to be like the factor of me not seeing her at all. Like I, at the very least, I would have driven up to Portland at like 2 miles an hour just so that I wouldn't have to deal with like slipping around. But I mean, I was to be able to like really like live by like that and be content with it too, because there's always times where it seemed like it's not going to work out. And even when I first moved to Colorado, by the time I actually got to the state of Colorado, I didn't even have enough money for gas. Like my friend Kermit was with me, and we ran out of gas maybe like an hour or two north of, or an hour or two outside of Denver. And it's like 4 in the morning, and we run out of gas, and then we're just waiting there. And then like maybe like a half hour later, we're like just like, all right, we'll just go to sleep and just kind of wait. A cop shows up and takes Kermit to go get some gas. I'm like, oh, he may or may not come back.
Oh no.
But I mean, it's not like, I guess like, but we got to Denver. I dropped him off, and then I went to go stay with my friend in the Springs. But I barely had any money to live, and I was kind of like sleeping on his couch, and just found a job working as like a waiter. But it's almost like when I grew up, those are like the things that it seemed like people always did. Like, if you're from the country, maybe you move to like New York City, and you're most likely or automatically you're going to be struggling, because it's like the amount that it costs to actually live in New York City is just not familiar to country people, or just even like the pace of life. So like being able to put yourself in those situations, and then having to deal with not having a lot of money, eating, very, very poor quality food. I guess, especially during that time where I really wasn't familiar with this type of lifestyle. Um, it's those are like the memories that I remember the most, because it like kind of like prepared me to be able to deal with situations in such a different manner and a different approach. Because like, yeah, I've made it through really bad situations, and so now really bad situations really don't faze me as much.
Exactly. Yeah, that seems like that's always the gift of going through those sorts of things.
Yeah,
Getting to carry that forward.
it's kind of like I'm not sure who says this, but maybe like on Shark Tank they talk about it, like if you've owned a business and like have failed one or two times, you're probably a really good person to start a business, because you know what it takes. You're like familiar with loss, with not with things just not going your way.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Which has definitely prepared me for this, like my like second kind of transition into trying to build businesses from the ground up. And I think the biggest thing with that is just like patience, like like having your expectations very low.
Yes.
And then trying to be okay or comfortable with asking people for help.
That's a big one. And that's one that I've struggled with,
Yeah.
and been working with, because it's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think but it's really cool when you find someone who knows what you're talking about and wants to help. Because then it's like, you can kind of let them go without having to overlook them. Because if they don't understand, so for example, I'm trying to get my second book edited, by my best friend, Emily,
Okay.
in Maryland. And she is, she's into the dead. She's into like my story. Like, while I'm on the Furthur trip, I'm texting all my friends, or at least like, my close group of friends from Maryland, about what's going on. So like almost like they're along with me during the ride, because without them, I would have no idea that this whole scene even exists.
Yeah. So you were laying the bread trail.
Yeah.
To be able to piece it back together. That's awesome.
And then, but I mean, with her, she's like, she knows me. We've known each other, for probably 20 or 25 years. And so she's seen me evolve from being some nerdy kid with cornrows and glasses in middle school to being this air guitar, whatever figure, on this bus that, at least for us, is so integral into like why we are the way we are.
It's such a symbol for so many people.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, and that culminates into us like being together for these Grateful Dead shows where we can just express ourselves fully and just be with each other. Because I think that's the biggest thing. It's just like, out of everything, the Grateful Dead, Furthur, this whole scene, it just brings people together in a place where they can express themselves without feeling like weird or um, feeling like an outsider, like everyone's included. So you can just kind of like be who you want to be. And it's kind of like when I go to like, I just started doing improv around here again.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so it's nice to just be going and just like be as wacky as you can, kind of be as, flamboyant or serious or weird.
Yeah.
And then everyone just being like, that's so cool.
Supportive, and then so you can just relax more and more into that, and
Yeah.
then what comes through is even better. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
But yeah, before I forget about Emily, just because I'm going to be so grateful for all the help that she gives me. Um, like when I sent her a copy of my book, and she's, the first thing she says, I love this. Like you have a great story. And basically that, the second book, Never Everland, basically is from the time that the bus trip ends all the way through, I would say, the end of 2019.
Okay.
So about a 6-year span of events, of traveling, Dead and Company shows, communes, rainbow gatherings, all the things that really make me who I am, and really really want, or really give me the motivation to keep traveling, keep doing things, and keep evolving as a person. Because like this scene kind of, or just the word further, like if I were to live by that word every day, it would basically just be trying to keep getting better, trying to keep growing, trying to keep evolving into, not even into like a set end goal, but
Yeah.
just as a state of mind of just never settling for what is, but keeping a mind of what could be or what is going to be.
I really like that. Yeah, it's such a good reminder. It reminds me of the human potential movement, of just like what is the human being potential at the highest levels. Like, what are we capable of in what are the most beautiful things we can accomplish? Like, how can we be the most empowered as people on the planet to have a good impact on those around us and care for the planet better? It's just like
Yeah.
everyone starts to do that more and more, it's going to start to really shift things
Yeah.
in a big way.
And I think that's why I started wearing, definitely, lately, I would say in the last 2 months or so, I've just been like more just like saying, I guess we're gonna go E. I've just been saying like fuck it, and just go like semi or pretty prankster, like just in like my everyday life. So it's definitely started wearing the ties more on
I
a
was
daily basis.
noticing that tie.
Jerry Garcia tie.
Oh, okay.
Um but yeah, tie dye every day, ties every day, and just coming in with like a smile, or just a good energy to the students and everyone that I teaching yoga a few times a week. And I was teaching a class last night, and I was doing some like balancing thing where I was just not on balance at all. I just kept falling to the left and the right. And at the end, I apologized, and like so many people came up to me afterwards. They're like, "Oh, but you're so good for not being perfect," and just like small things like that, like really helps people be comfortable or vulnerable enough to be able to like, oh, well, he's a teacher and he can't, like, he's kind of messing up, so at least I don't feel too bad if I can't do it.
It's so good to share that vulnerability, and then it gives people permission.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
it's like we're not perfect. Perfect might be even like a really bad word, just like good or bad.
Yeah, it's that binary of
Yeah,
just more nuance.
it's like something that's like almost unachievable,
yeah,
but you kind of want to work towards
you
that.
ideally
Yeah.
going to like the highest potential. But yeah, to get hung up on any kind of perfection never leads to
Yeah.
a good vibe. I was going to ask you a little bit more about some of your world travels. Did you include that in the book too? I'm thinking, yeah, probably like a lot of stories from that trip.
Yeah. If I had to go with, well, you didn't ask me. I'll tell you one story. I think if I were to tell one story that I think is like really really good about who I am and like the type of people that I was around, I so when I was traveling through Europe, I went in January of 2016. My friend Aiken, he had like told me about like $100 flight from Baltimore to Amsterdam,
Okay.
and this was like in July or something, and I bought it just like that, and I was like, cool, now I gotta get a passport. So I went to Amsterdam, and I would say like maybe like a month or two into it, I'm flying from probably England to Ireland. You probably need to fly. And these two gentlemen pick me up. So I'm doing a lot of what was it? Couch surfing? Yeah, couch surfing. So I'm doing a lot of that throughout Europe. And this couple, these two guys, they pick me up at the train station, and they have like another visitor with them who's doing couch surfing as well. And at this point, I'm just like, I'm a rainbow kid, so I'm like hugging is like, I'm not shaking hands anymore unless like they like shove my hug out the way. So I, as soon as I see them, I'll give them these big bear hugs and say, oh, thank you for letting me come and all this stuff. And it turned out that they were nudist. And they were really cool about it. And they tell you this beforehand, so it wasn't like a surprise.
Prepared, yeah.
But basically, like they just, they tell you like, once we get to our house, we strip down, and that's just how we live. Which was fine, because I had that. I think we talked about it on the first episode where I had to do the naked lap around the bus from like a Michigan State Oregon game that a football game that I bet Zane on, or someone that we bet a naked lap. So I've been a little bit familiar with being out in front of strangers in the nude. I don't think that made it to the movie, but it might be on like some like blooper reel or something. But anyway, so I give them the hugs, these big bear hugs when I first meet them, and we go back to their place, and they were really cool about it. They were like, well, if you don't feel comfortable, being in the nude, maybe you can just like wear shorts, no shirt or something like that. So I was like, all right, cool. And so I was like, oh, okay, can I just go take a shower since I've been traveling all day? And so I'm in the shower, and I'm kind of like psyching myself up, like, doing a couple push-ups. But just kind of like just trying to get out of my head as much as possible. Because I think I had done it a few times by the end of my trip. But I think this is the first time I was doing this nudist thing.
Had you ever been to like communal saunas or anything like that, like co-ed saunas?
No, I did do that in Switzerland, but I think that might have been a few weeks later.
Okay. So this is your initiation moment.
And then, but I think within like 2 or 3 minutes, it kind of just like disappeared because one, you're not like looking at someone's waist the whole time.
It doesn't take long for it to be normalized.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to not have clothes be anything you can judge. Like it's just human.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Because even if like a woman was here, I wouldn't be like staring at her chest, or like I wouldn't be staring at her crotch right now. I'm like looking at you eye to eye, unless I'm like trying to like think of what I'm going to say.
Yeah, when everyone's nude, it's like even more important to keep the eye contact. You don't want to be that one person that does that.
And you learn that pretty quick in rainbow gatherings because people are just like walking naked all around. There's guys playing football butt naked, and you're like, I'm not going to intercept this pass.
Everyone just being free, being themselves, being free.
It's like I just can't do it just because I don't like all the stuff flying around. But I digress. So we're just having normal conversations, normal people, just butt naked in a house. But at the end of the night, they're like all saying goodbyes, and then one of the gentlemen, who was like a little bit bigger, kind of looked like Santa Claus.
Okay.
Kind of, he had the white beard, and he was kind of big, and we're saying goodnight, and I think I just kind of like maybe like shook hands or just like said like, all right, good night to the guest, and then his partner. But then the Santa Claus dude, he's just like, he has his arms wide open, ready for that big bear hug that I gave him at the beginning. And all I think is, I can't go in for a handshake now.
So you went ahead with the hug?
Went in, hug, tip to tip, and, let it sit for the, the 8 Mississippi that you gotta let a good hug stand for. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi,
Man, trooper.
and
You did it.
so yeah, I think that was probably one of the things that was like, that's a really good story. If I ever have like a really weird moment, like, oh, well, this happened, and I think everyone kind of responds the same, where it's just like, that is,
yeah, that's a fun one.
cannot go like, I'm not sure what would have happened if I would have been like,
Sorry, handshake,
mm.
super awkward. It's
like,
Noonism so normalized for him. Of course he's gonna go right for the bear hug, not think anything of it.
I was like, and since that day, I've only given people handshakes. Or just the dap.
Yeah.
But I mean, I did that a couple of times. I did it in Paris. It was just me and one other guy. And it was, again, super casual, pretty chill. And then, I did the sauna thing in Switzerland. And by that point, I was just so comfortable. It was almost like, did you ever used to watch Rugrats?
I remember that show.
Where there's like this one episode where like the main character Tommy Pickles, he gets rid of his like diaper, and he just like feels so free without a diaper, and he's like, I love Nikki. Nikki is good. It's just like,
feeling free. That's the way to be.
Yeah. But I mean, just traveling around Europe is, I think eventually, so like the Air Guitar Foundation is, it's kind of like the parent company of all these things that I want to do.
Okay, right.
I think what I want to do, instead of like giving kids like a scholarship to go to college, I would like to give them a scholarship to go travel somewhere like that for like 3 months, have all their expenses covered. Be able, I would probably try to get them to like a retreat of like a Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat or something, just so they can kind of like learn more about like manifesting what they want, and trying to just go through life with more of like a steady head, rather than just reacting how your body is, rather than what your mind wants you to do. But then be able to go from that into like a 3-month, like, either drive around the US or just go to a different country and just explore. Because when I grew up, like watching like Boy Meets World and these types of shows,
I remember that one too.
It's like, once you graduate high school, I thought you were supposed to go on this like big road trip across the USA and see what else was out there.
It's a rite of passage kind of thing. Right?
But like, no, I don't know people that do that anymore, or like, that's even true. Like shows that portray that that's a thing that people should be trying to do, rather than just going from like, oh, the summer between high school and college, I'm just going to work so that I can save up for college so I can have fun. And that's probably what I did. I just worked the summer before college. And then when I got to college, I was just like, this is such a change, because I went from a country boy to like a city boy, and got to deal with, public transportation and all these things that I wasn't really used to.
Right.
But, I think just as soon as I started like driving like outside of the state and started seeing other things, I was just like, just always so intrigued about new things. Because it's so easy, at least from like the school that I went to in college, to like just stick around that area and just hang out with the lacrosse team, or whoever, the soccer team or something like that, and just go to whatever party's happening that Saturday.
You've already got your circle of friends. It's very comfortable.
Yeah,
you're not having to like reach anywhere really.
Yeah, and you kind of just get the repetitive thing. You're just going to the same parties, seeing the same people.
Yeah, stagnant.
But I linked up with a friend in college, who I guess I worked for. But then we go to like these different colleges like almost every weekend, and go set up our shop or whatever and do what we were doing. But it was just like, these people don't know who I am. Like, I can create like I don't have to like, they're not going to see me for who they think I am. I can just come here and just be a totally different person. Which is always cool, because I always wanted to be that kid in like elementary school who was like the new kid just because everyone always gravitated towards the new kid because it was just so new. Like,
Super interesting. Like,
yeah,
where did they come from? Who is this
exactly.
person all of a sudden on our ship?
And especially if you can be like sociable and you can make people laugh, and you're not that person that like causes destruction like when you're drunk or whatever. I was like never really that like obnoxious as like a when I did drink. I was always like trying to be like the life of the party, if anything. Um, and I think just me just doing that throughout my 3.5 years of college got me to the point where I was like, I just need to just go somewhere else and just start a new life, just because it's just getting way too familiar, and the choices on the East Coast were just diminishing. That you know go out to the West, and I think I've always wanted to gradually move out west, like to the West Coast. It was just always more like me and my friends grew up as Tupac fans, and so like we were always about the West Coast. But like moving out here, I was like, oh, that would be cool, but I never thought I'd do it. But then like living in California for like a month at a time, I was like, I really like this vibe around here, where it's just like people are free to do what they want, where they don't have to deal with all those laws and things that like really have no positive effect on our culture. And then there is just like so much more advanced. Like I feel like California and Colorado compared to Maryland, or the East Coast like 10 years ago, was just like two totally different countries. It was like it's like going, from Germany to Amsterdam or something, where
That makes sense.
these things are legal, everyone's happy, people aren't in jail for all these stupid things,
Uh-huh.
and people are so much more environmentally friendly, especially like or at least they were like in Denver, probably more than California. But bike paths, like I never seen a bike path until I got to Colorado.
Interesting. Yeah.
So just like the layout of like new places kind of give you like, oh, I didn't know I could ride a bike, like, to and from work in a comfortable fashion, without being like on the side of a road. Cause like my family lives like 15 minutes away driving, which is probably like an hour on a bike. And once I like came back from Colorado the first time, I was like, oh, I'm going to bike to my uncle's house. And my mom's like, whoa, 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 whoa. That's like 15 miles. And I was like, yeah, I know. Like, that's fine. It's like, no. You can't do that. Like riding a bike that far was just like, to a lot of people where I come from, it's just like, no, we don't have bike lanes or anything. So you're just on the side of the highway, or like this like mini highway. But like my best friend's dad, he would always ride his bike like hours and hours, and no one thought any different. But like most people, they were just like, this just so weird. But here, so it's like, I love I mean, besides this weather where I think I'm gonna slip and fall, it's just like I love riding my bike. I love this environment that kind of pushes you toward going out hiking around the mountains, being outside. Like this reminds me of like where I grew up more than living downtown, because I grew up in the woods. Like me and my cousins was just spend hours walking around the woods trying to find whatever is out there, but we didn't know. We just going on an adventure, and our parents wouldn't let us back in the house unless it was just for like water or food. So it was just like just get outside and play and explore in a place where we can all feel comfortable and things like that.
Let nature be the teacher.
Yeah. And it was really cool because I mean we grew up that way. So when I started doing all these like gatherings and travel, it was almost similar to just like walking around in the woods, just trying to find, something. And I remember going to my first international rainbow gathering, and, getting off of a bus in Germany, and then trying to like navigate my way, I think like 4 or 5 miles on foot through the woods in the dark to go find this like one little cabin that didn't really have any sound coming out of it. So you kind of had to like really be on your trail, not kind of get like diverted off, which is really cool because it kind of just took me back to those days where I was just like exploring. But now I'm just an adult with a little bit more money and a little bit more accessibility to what I can do. But it's just it's really cool to see that those things that you grew up with just weren't just for like, they weren't wasted. Like I'm a country boy, but I think I can like adapt to the city life. Not that that's like my personal, that's not what I would want to do long term. But it is cool to kind of get like both sides of it because, I mean, I think like during this ice storm, we lived downtown, so we didn't have any issues with water, electricity, or anything. And I think that's what most people downtown experience.
Yeah.
But I remember me and Eliza lived out in her mom's on her mom's farm like 5 years ago, or maybe like 6 or 7 years ago, and we were probably out there for like 2 months before we figured out. Like I just, we kind of get to it'd be like 9 o'clock or something. Like I want some ice cream. It's just like, yeah, if you
It's
want
gonna
ice
be-
cream, it's like a 45-minute trip.
Oh, is that far out? Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably like 15 minutes away from like any store. But then if you like any stores that are open after like 9 o'clock,
It's dwindling on.
yeah, it's like not like Sundance where it's like open
Yeah.
till 11. Like,
Oh, I love their hours. Yeah, it's so great.
it's very Eugene friendly hours.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you were talking about bicycle riding, and when you're on your trip in Europe, did you do some bicycling over there? Was that
Hmm.
what was your main mode of travel when you're going around?
To get from country to country, it was actually cheaper to either go by bus, depending on how close the countries were, or by plane. And for some reason, people just kept telling me like, "Oh, just get the Euro rail or just do train." But for some reason, trains were just way more expensive than any other mode of transportation at that point. Um, but even when I was like in the city, I usually just walked around and just observed and just like
Yeah.
walked. Probably a couple times where I used the bike, where like if the people that I was staying with had a bicycle that they would allow us to use,
Yeah.
I
Totally.
would do it that way. I rented a scooter in Rome. Is that where the Colosseum is?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, I rented a scooter there. I don't think I rented anywhere else. And I would just, they have, I think it's called Blah Blah Car, where it's just kind of like Uber, but it's like if I'm traveling from Spain to France, I have like 2 seats in my car. You can reserve one of those seats.
Blah blah, like BLAH.
Mm-hmm. No H, just blah blah.
Oh, blah blah,
Yeah.
BLA.
Yeah.
Blah blah car. It's funny.
So yeah, I did that a few times, but yeah, not a lot of bicycling, unfortunately. I think even in Amsterdam, I don't think I even got a bicycle there. But even actually, there I was probably more intimidated to ride a bike because there were so many people on bikes, and they kind of had like their own way of like,
yeah, weaving around.
yeah. I'm just
It's
like, I'm
kinda
gonna
intense.
cause trouble, and then we're like, this American came here for the weed, and now he's fucking up.
What were some of the you visited some intentional communities when you were traveling abroad, right?
Yeah.
What were some that you had fond memories of visiting or that stood out to you?
So I believe it's called Beneficio. It's about an hour south of Granada, Spain. Granada. And this is like an off the grid community. So like I took the bus down. I think it's like maybe like an hour or two, and it's probably like really close to the southern border of Spain. And probably had to walk maybe a mile or two off the road into the woods to get to the actual community. And there were like people there, like maybe like a mile within, at their cars and like kind of directing people if they were coming by. But it was kind of like you can kind of come and stay for as long as you want. There was like a teepee at the very beginning, and then there's like a few huts that you could see that they build with their own hands. I think one was a pizza place, and like a little restaurant. They had like a little Wi-Fi building like up on a hill, and then they had like a few fresh water sources. But it wasn't like it wasn't like a really like a community thing, like where people got together every night and did something specific. There wasn't like a Tuesday night this or a Wednesday night that. It was just kind of like, we're here, we're just gonna live and just be peaceful. So I found like a few like younger people my age, and I went and camped with them or camped near them. But I mean, just during the day, we just go hiking and kind of just sit around and just, just talk to see like what other people were traveling, because everyone was just like traveling from different things, going to and from rainbow gatherings. And it's people from all different walks of life, not just gatherers, but just people who just didn't really want the normal life, I guess, per se. And I think even like a couple people who were, I guess, kicked out of the country in the US just went over there and just kind of set up shop. But the funnest thing we did one day was I woke up one morning and came down to the main area, and they were taking down this house that was just like mostly just these big logs and like a roof that they assembled on there. But then they were just like carrying all these logs, maybe 100 yards up the hill, and they were just rebuilding the house up there in a different spot. So I just said, do you need help? And 2 or 3 hours later, we had got everything up there and started actually building the house, putting kind of just like Legos, where you're just like, staking your spot and then just like filling in the slots as needed. So that was really cool, just because I'd never seen anything like that. And 2, just to be able to just participate freely. And they're like, they're not asking all these questions like, can you do this? Can you do that? Just jump in and see where you're needed and kind of help out. And I think that's kind of like the intention of those communities, is that we're all going to help each other whenever someone needs help. And then other than that, we're just going to be peaceful and just live together. And I would say the craziest part about that experience was they told me I could see, if I walked far enough, that I could see the tip of Africa from wherever we were. And I was supposed to go with like 3 of our friends. 3 of the friends that I met, we were supposed to go together, but then they kind of had like the night before, and we're kind of like, we're just going to chill. So I just went out, 'cause I think that might've been like my last day or a day before. And I don't speak Spanish at all, but like, I'm just like walking and I'm starting to see like signs and things like that I obviously can't interpret. And I'm thinking like I see a body of water. So I'm like, oh, maybe I'm getting close to seeing Africa. And I was like, oh, this is going to be so cool. Like, I don't think anyone in my family's ever seen Africa. I'm not going to get there, but at least I can see it. And like, I'm walking around like this, like little like corner, like on this mountain. And then like 2 or 3 cars just like pull up out of nowhere. These guys start talking Spanish and they have like rifles in their hand. And I'm like, oh, fuck. I was like, oh, geez.
Whoa, yikes.
And I just like slowly like just start backing up and just start like walk, because obviously they're going to tell me that I can't keep going. But that was just like one of those experiences. I was like, oh, wow, I should probably try and prepare myself a little bit better next time. Like, know a little bit of Spanish, or have some phrases ready to go, or have Google Translate downloaded in my pocket. But yeah, that kind of scared me a little bit. But I mean, nothing happened, so I wasn't too upset or anything. But it was
It's a little startling.
yeah. But it's cool just to go on those adventures where you really don't know. You have like an end goal, but you really don't know what's going to come of it, and kind of just have to go with the flow. Because I'm sure if I really tried to force my way, things could have gone a little bit differently. But
were you eventually able to see across the water?
No.
Oh.
I had to turn around and go back and find my way back to the I'm not sure if you would call it a commune or what you would call it, or
eco village, maybe.
Yeah.
That's the new names. It's a nice balance though, when you can have an intentional community where there's not a forced sharing of meals and all this stuff, and people can kind of do their own thing and just live peacefully. But then there's the support of having others around, and the optional gathering at certain times, and like a main area, like a main kitchen or something like that.
Yeah,
it's a nice balance. Because some of the earlier communes were a lot more extreme, where it's like everyone has to eat together, everyone has to eat the same food, everyone has to do this all together. And so then you get like all the dynamics, the what am I starting to say, like interpersonal dynamics that come up with living that closely with people, and it gets super complex, and it's a lot of work.
And I feel like even like on the bus trip, there's some of the people are there for like months at a time, and they're around the same people. There's probably like a group of like 6 or 7 people that were on the whole 2 or 3 months of the trip. And I'm sure at times I would assume, I can't say for sure, but that there was some conflicts and things like that, just because of we're around each other all day. There's always going to be some instances where someone says the wrong thing, or someone perceives something as being rude or deceitful or something like that. So there's always, I feel like in any community, there's always going to be some type of conflict, but it's just, one who's leading the community, who can like step in and interject, or if everyone's kind of like has equal say, how are people just like interacting and solving issues like on a regular basis? Because you know not everyone's going to agree on everything, and obviously that's how and why we can evolve, is because if you can understand someone's point of view and can sympathize with them and empathize to the point where you can, like, you don't have to agree with them, but at least you can understand why they got to that. Because one of the things I try and tell people is that, like, you should never like judge a person on like what they say, just because you don't know their whole life story. So like, someone grows up around people who just cuss all the time, they're not going to think cussing's wrong. And then, if they are put in a setting where it's like ruled out, like no one's allowed to do that, and they do it, then they're perceived as like being these like rude people, but they're not actually rude. They're just, they've repetitively done something so many times that's just who they are. They're not doing anything wrong consciously.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And to be able to get someone's life story, you would have to probably interview them in a podcast for like 2 years straight. And even then, you're probably not going to get the full story. So unless you know the full story, you can't judge someone. So therefore, you shouldn't judge anyone anytime. And obviously, that's hard, especially in the world that we live in.
Yeah, easier said than done, but a good goal for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even when you can, I think the biggest thing is like, just because you don't like me, some people, if you don't like someone, especially for like politics or something, I'm not sure who or what, but if you don't like someone or their views, whatever they say, you're gonna just like cross off immediately. But they might actually say something worthwhile that you can actually implement into your life, that could be valuable and useful. And obviously that's a hard thing to do, like especially with today, where almost like people that you used to look up to, like, I don't know, Bill Cosby or something. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of doctors that have come out of watching the Cosby Show and things like that, and now this other stuff's happened. So it's like, so do we just negate everything that he did for our world now? Like he God, I want to say he saved like a lot of lives, just for being able to influence people who have the power to help other people in their lives. And so it's like, there's like a imaginary line of like, at least I'm thinking that, like, who can you look up to, or like who are you allowed to say that you look up to, or that you taken something away from someone. But it some people they make exceptions for, like, I'm sure Michael Jackson, that's probably one of those big exceptions that people are like, no, the music he made kind of like
overshadows everything else.
Yeah. But someone like R. Kelly, it's like, different scenario, obviously different music. And maybe if he was more popular, maybe he wouldn't have all this backlash that people have given him. But at the same time, Michael Jackson, like, to me, he's like so influential to the point where it's like he created so much of what we see now, like with like people like Usher, or people that almost anyone who probably dances probably knows of Michael Jackson in some way or form. And I know for me, that was probably like one of my like big breakout moments, and for like me being comfortable like performing and things like that. We had like an assignment in 10th grade. It was like the American Dream. I was like, I don't know like what the American Dream is. But But I do remember a movie that was called The American Dream, the Jackson 5 story. Like I used to watch that like all the time. And I remember like doing my oral report was just like me doing like a Thriller dance or something in my English class, and like I'm grinding on people. I'm like really trying to like just like become this thing or this like entertainer in the moment.
Mm.
And I mean, I just what he's done for me, but besides the things that he is maybe condemned for, uh, kind of I just have to take what he did for me in a positive way, and then what he did that maybe not be so positive, just try and help others not do the same thing, or make them aware of limiting situations that could get them in those types of situations, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if it
It's okay.
does. Yeah, it is okay. Um, but I guess I was just saying that just because I wish people would really try and not judge others so quickly and hastily.
Yeah.
It's
It's
it
sad.
really sucks.
It's sad when it happens because people are throwing out so much good because of the judgment, and it's not giving this other person a chance to express their perspective because you're just cutting it off too soon.
Or give them the chance to change. Or
Mm.
well, I guess if you don't know they change, I guess it's your perception of them. And like if someone changes and you just don't give them a chance to show you that they have changed.
Yeah, it's really easy for us to like hold someone to an older version of themselves that we know them as, and not allow them to they're actually evolving, and we're not even caught up on it because we're holding them to this old
Yeah.
version. It happens so easily though.
And I know Dr. Joe talks about it a lot. It's well, he doesn't really talk about it. He like refers to like if you're in a relationship for like a long time, the person that you're looking at isn't really even that person. It's just like it's years and years of what you think they
You
are.
have a story about that person,
Yeah.
right?
And it's like, man, it's really weird because like I know a lot of people who have been married for 10, 20, 30 years, and I wonder like how much of their partner do they actually see, or they're just putting out from whatever their mind has built up for decades and decades, repetitive over and over. It's kind of scary to think about because like I think I'm in like year 7 right now, so like how do you get that fresh perspective of this person who is always changing, and then give them the opportunity to change in an environment where they can feel safe and feel like if they change, they're going to lose out on XYZ. Because I think that's the biggest thing is like, you don't move away from your home because you don't want to have that feeling of being homeless or not having security. You don't take that. I don't go on this trip because, or I don't extend my trip on the bus because I want to make sure that like my bills are paid or whatever. But can we get people to just take those like leaps of faith without having to think in that manner? I think is the thing.
Yeah. I'm curious, what are you most excited for this summer that's coming up, summer of 2024? Like, do you have anything on the horizon that you're working toward or looking forward to?
I don't think so. I mean, I mean, who knows if Dead and Company will do the Las Vegas shows? I'm not sure if you heard about those or
Oh
like the
no, they might come
possibility.
back out. Oh,
I
interesting.
mean,
It's a rumor.
yeah, it's a very big rumor. No, I think they're possibly going to do like a residency at the Sphere or something in Las
Oh,
Vegas.
that's that big giant screen
Yeah,
that's like bigger than IMAX kind of deal. It looks
yeah.
amazing. I saw some videos of it.
Um, I doubt that'll happen, but I mean,
Yeah.
if it does, I would guess I'd probably go there for a show or two if that's a possibility. But
Yeah.
I think this summer, since there's no tour, I mean, it is the 10th anniversary of our trip.
Oh, that's cool.
But I don't know if anything's going to happen out of that. I mean, besides this prankster thing at the Wild Hall on March 22nd and 23rd, the 60th, that's the 60th anniversary of the original bus trip. So
right.
I know I have no idea if it has anything or involvement with our 10-year anniversary. But besides that, I think I just want to, I really want to just be as creative as possible. So I mean, just taking these improv classes, I'm taking an acting class now too, just to see, you know, what I'm good. I guess I've never really tried acting, and I think like in high school as like an athlete, I always looked at theater as like, I guess like the freaks or whatever. I guess if there were like freaks and geeks, and then there's athletes, and if you had to choose one, or I guess even I was more of a geek than probably anything else. I was always like,
me too, for sure.
I mean, I didn't get good grades in middle school, just because I didn't. It was so weird because like I was like, I mean, if I can just get through these grades, I don't really need to like. These grades aren't going to matter in high school, so I didn't really take middle school seriously. But when I got to high school, I just, I wanted to play sports, and you have to keep your grades up. So I just actually like buckled down and actually started doing my work all the time for the most part. And then like, math was like my big thing. So I took like every AP math class that there was. I took AP chemistry, AP physics, and I was just like, yeah, I'm like 100% a nerd. which is a cool thing, because like, I mean, I kept playing sports, but like the crowds that I would hang out with were so different than just like, I would hang out with like people on the football team, basketball team, but then I'd also hang out with like the theater kids who were in my AP classes, and they would show me movies that I'd never seen or never even thought of, and we'd hang out and we'd be doing like our math projects and things like that. So I mean, I definitely like embrace it, and I love that aspect of being like a quote unquote geek. At least from like my high school, it wasn't like too much of a bad thing, as I'm sure like maybe in like bigger schools or like city schools, the way they're perceived on TV or portrayed on TV. But like one of my best friends, he was like the smartest kid in our whole school, and he was like also like the most popular, and like so it was like those dynamics where like the smartest kids were like popular, so it wasn't like, if I play football and I'm dumb, like that was like, what do you call it, like Revenge of the Nerd popular type of atmosphere that you would think we would have. But it was kind of like the total opposite, where like people valued you for being smart. Like it wasn't like a bad thing to be intelligent, which is really cool, because I think for so many years I was just like, I would rather be cool and get bad grades rather than try and be cool and get good grades if I could.
How did you get into computers? I know you have a background in doing some computer related work.
I mean, we always had a desktop when I was growing up. I think we had the MS DOS. Like my first memories were probably that. I think just playing like a lot of like solitaire and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And then we got like a gateway desktop computer when they first came out. Got
I remember those.
the dial-up computer,
Yeah.
getting on AOL and things like that.
Prodigy, did you ever do that?
No, I've never even heard
There's
of
a
it.
service before AOL called Prodigy. It was a Prodigy and CompuServe, and then AOL.
Oh no.
All around the same time. Yeah. It was a interesting time for sure.
Yeah.
Back then, and the dial-up modems, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I think I was more into like the AV side of things growing up. So like I like just like playing with sound. I remember like when I went to my cousin's house, he had like a surround sound system. I was like, this is so cool.
Oh yeah.
And I got my mom to buy me one. But I'd always like find like old TVs, old speakers, and just try and do whatever I could to make them work.
Nice.
I was always, even when I was in middle school, I had the 13 dial TV that I fixed so that I could play video games on it and still watch TV and things like that.
Awesome.
So I was just like a big nerd, and just like, just trying to figure out like what's AV out, what's AVN mean, and just like
I was doing that too.
yeah,
Yeah,
just
for
like
sure.
play with it. But then
Yeah.
like eventually you're just like, oh yeah, I know exactly what this means and what out and in and all that
Right.
stuff means. And then when I got to, I mean, high school, I probably wasn't doing too much with computers. I was just like always hanging out with friends and things like that. And when I went to college, I originally went to be an accountant just because I love math so much. And then like 2 months in, I was like, yeah, we don't do any math in accounting. It's just like I feel like it was just basically like preparing you for like if the computers didn't work, what you needed to do. And I was just like, this is just horrible. Um, and I thought I was like, I think computers is like the only thing that I'm like really like good at, like that I'm confident in besides math. So I just switched my majors and just like really started getting into computers. And I think the biggest thing for me, we were in college and we watched To Catch a Predator, like where they'd find like all these like pedophiles and things, and would like they would come to these houses, and then the cops would come out and arrest them and all things like that. So I was like, oh, I would want to do that. So I wanted to get into like cybersecurity and things like that. And I think I started my first internship at Bill Me Later, which I think is now eBay or PayPal, but they went through like a transition period. So for like a year, I worked at their help desk, and then started working with like network security and things like that. But it was getting to the point where you're taking 300 400 level computer classes. Then you're working an internship 20-25 hours a week. And then anyone who knows that you are even slightly good at computers calls you for their personal help. Especially like my mom, like, oh, I don't know how to hook this printer up.
My email's not working.
Yeah. So it's just like, it was like 24/7.
Help desk time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And which I was just, one of my basketball players was asking me, cause he's thinking about getting into network security. And I think I like try to like tell him not to do it just cause like from like an athlete perspective, I'm like, you don't want to just sit in front of a computer for 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. But I would recommend doing the help desk because out of everything, I think with technology, help desk, or at least that aspect of IT, is the most improv part of.
Exactly. I do a lot of one-on-one tech support, and I have for many years, and it's great because it's more human centric than just sitting in front of a computer or working with a computer. You're like, yeah, like you said, there's a lot of improv aspect to it. You're troubleshooting, problem solving, so you're using creativity. Yeah.
You can't predict. I feel like with most jobs, you can predict what you're going to do that day. And by predicting what you're going to do, you can probably predict the feeling as well. And you keep doing that over and over again, and then you're basically just going to become a robot at that point.
Yeah.
But at least with help desks, like you just go into every day not knowing what's going to happen. You just have to wait for the first sign of crisis, and then you just step in wherever you're needed.
Right.
So that, along with just being able to go around to different departments and talk to everyone, know what everyone does, kind of gives you a better understanding of, one, the company that you're working for, and two, what other things you may want to do if you weren't going to do that particular job. And I think like marketing was probably like the one that I gravitated towards, just because they had the nice iMac computers, like they were always getting brand new ones, just because of the size of the company and it was growing. But I think it was like right when the skinny iMacs came out, and they were like so pretty, so bright and crisp. And then they were always making like all these like really cool art things on them. So it's just like, if there's anything else I would do, it'd probably be something like that.
Nice.
But I really just like that, like that one-on-one aspect of just like talking to someone, just like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm like kind of automatically fixing whatever issue, but like, what are you doing this weekend, or what did you do, or just actually getting to know people around the office. Because if you don't have that, then it's only like lunch breaks, if you take lunch breaks, or like the Christmas party or something like that. So it was just cool, just for especially like it was me and my friend Kim, who's a guy, just so that this makes sense, or it doesn't have to make sense, but we were both at the same college, and we both got this internship together, and he played soccer for our school, but he was just like this guy that I just like never really hung out with, but like we just became really good friends because we were like sitting together, we'd go help each other, and but then like after that we'd actually hang out together and things like that. So we came in at this like really cool time at the company where it was growing, so we always had stuff to do. We were always getting all these brand new things to like work with, or what do you call it, build for like new and incoming employees. So the freshness of like the tech evolution at that point, because I think iPhones were just coming out then, so we were getting the newest iPhones, the newest laptops, and it's just like Christmas every day for IT nerds, where it's just like, this is so cool, and you have access to all these things that you just normally wouldn't have access to. And I think since I've worked at like IBM, and I think that might have been the only other IT job I had was IBM, but just that one job, that help desk where you actually like physically go and talk to people and help out, was really like invaluable, because I eventually just started waiting tables and kind of getting rid of the IT aspect and just picking up a plate instead. But I mean, still the same things where you're just talking to different people all the time, and then just like keeping an eye open for, who needs help when they need help, and trying to be like more of like a team player, more than anything, which is really cool, because I think when people see that you're a good teammate and that you like just want to help them out, like, picking up someone's trash from like a table that's not yours, or helping out someone who might have like 5 tables, you only have 1 or 2, and not expecting like, oh well, I need you to give me some of your tips if I'm going to help you with that.
Right, where it gets all transactional or something.
Yeah. So just like, it's always cool because when you do things, you just give other people permission to do the same, and if those things are in a positive and like a giving mood, then other people are going to keep giving, and then that's going to create a culture of where people are going to be happy to come to work, because it's not going to be so much work as it is just being around your friends and then just doing like some work on the side, because you keep the environment so exciting and fresh that it's like, I don't mind going into work today because these 5 hours are going to go by like that.
Yeah, that's a beautiful vision.
Yeah.
To just have that be the standard for work.
Yeah.
It's where you hanging out with friends and enjoying time. Well, I'm starting to ask these questions at the end of the podcast that I do. And I got this from Noah on the Synchronicity podcast, so I didn't come up with this, but I love it. So first question is, what's your favorite color?
Green.
What's your favorite animal?
Lion.
What's your favorite number?
9.
Nice.
Do people usually have to wait? Yeah,
that was the fastest ever. I love that. It's just fun to see how some people will have to think about it for a while. Like you were just like, you knew right away. So there's like different.
Yeah, I mean, when I was like doing like my like pre-podcast interview last night in my head, when I'm just like laying in bed, just like come up with like random questions. I'm not sure. I feel like this questions like these came up, maybe not this specific one, but like, what's your favorite this, favorite that? And like, I remember like when I asked people like, oh, like what type of music you want, or what type of music do you like, or what do you listen to? They're like, oh, I don't know, anything, whatever's on the radio. I don't get mad a lot.
It's disappointing,
but I get pretty pissed off when I'm like, so what kind of music you like? I'm like, I don't know, whatever, everything. I'm like, you asshole. You do not like everything.
Give me something to go off. Okay?
Yeah. I mean, it's like I know my favorite song, Help on the Way. Favorite food, watermelon. Is like I probably know like my favorite, Golden Goat. You can get Golden Goat at Mile High Dispensary, 1350 South Sheridan Boulevard, Denver, Colorado. That's home
Nice.
for me. But they always got some good fresh golden goat, med and rec. Uh, but I mean, I think just having like a favorite, it's like I don't always like go to it, but at least like people that know me know like at least they have like that or they have that to like fall back on. Like when I go to my friend's house, like when I went to Emily and Jonathan's house for um it was like a couple summers ago, and they were doing like I mean where we're from, we just eat a lot of crabs during the summertime, and they're like, yeah, we know you're not gonna eat crabs, so what do you want? I was like, you know what I want. They were like, all right, we got you. So I get there, it's just like one big watermelon, slice it in half, give me a
Nice.
spoon, I'm good to go.
Nice.
Like that's all you really need. And I mean, I grow up, our school colors in high school were green and gold. So green was just like, I grew up, all of my family went to the same high school. So green and gold were just like standards from where we grew up. And my favorite college, Michigan State, my favorite player, Magic Johnson, green and white, or at least like dark green, forest green and white. And, you know, sometimes that's just like, that's how you kind of know, like, oh, if you know me, you know exactly. Well, like especially like on the bus, everyone knew I love watermelon, and like anytime they could get some, they would definitely save it for me and things like that. So knowing those, your favorites are so crucial, and it kind of gives you like that identity. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, he's a watermelon guy. Like I remember. One of my friends, she bought me a shirt that was just like nothing but watermelon slices. So I was like, this is so cool. Like it
Awesome.
doesn't fit anymore, but it's like, and if I wear it, it's probably gonna come up to like my forearm. But it was, so I mean, like, yeah, if people don't know that you're favorite, they're not gonna get you those types of shirts or have those things ready for you. So gotta have those on lock, ready to go.
Yeah. Nice. What is it about number 9 that you like?
Uh,
Is it
it's
like a
so,
Beatles song? Number 9?
uh,
Number 9?
no, so when I first started playing football in high school, the first my number before that was 24. Is my favorite basketball player at the time, Desmond Mason. It was his number. Um, but then and I had the number 24 like my first one or two games of football, and then either like we had got new jerseys, and they were like, so you get to choose a new number because I think maybe mine had like ripped or something, and they were like, all right, so choose your number carefully, like, because next year you're going to be on varsity, so you're probably going to want the same number, but if you get like the number 2, this guy's he already has it, so you probably won't be able to get it. So I was like, all right. So I think number 9 just came to me, I guess. But then and then that was like my number. I was number 99 for football in high school. Um, and when I first moved out to Colorado, my friend Chase, we're always smoking and things like that, and he had this like little like weed journal, and he was just like a little like picture book or something that like, you're high, you just kind of just draw in or write in. And this one day, maybe like a year into our relationship, he just like gave it to me. We were just like up in Fort Collins, and I went on this like full page rant about like why the number 9 is like the greatest number in the world. And from what I remember, it's like because you take 3, 6, and 0, you add those up, that's number 9. 360 degrees, you see everything.
Ah, there
So
you go. Bring
and
in the math.
yeah, but it was just like I'm just like I'm out there and I'm just going on about it. I just remember him like always bringing up that like book all the time, and
It's fun.
sorry.
Oh,
I just found out he passed away in March. I just found out like a month ago that he passed away in March.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's always good to remember and just let it out. But
Yeah.
I mean, I just remember all those times, like I said, when I moved to Colorado, I didn't have really anything, and he lived down the hall in this dorm that I was in. And we just like, I think he was just like, he saw me. He's like, oh, that guy looks cool. And we just started hanging out.
Nice.
And we just like we didn't really have much in common. Like I played basketball. He was more into weightlifting. but we'd always smoke and just always hang out like pretty much like every night. We'd always go to parties together.
Mm-hmm.
And even like when I'm like during like holidays, he knew I was like in Colorado by myself, so he'd like almost like force me to come to his house and stay with his parents and everything. And they were like probably one of the wealthiest families I'd been around. So I wasn't like always normally comfortable there, but with him, it was just like, he'd always, for like a friend, he just like always like took care of me and just made sure I was okay. And especially in those types of situations. Um, but we just spent so much time together, and he saw me evolve into this air guitar thing, and he was always just so about it. And, um, obviously the more I went into this scene, the less I was in contact with friends from my past if they weren't into the Grateful Dead and things like that. Not anything out of like frustration. It's just we were just on two different paths, doing two different things, and we'd always like get together and stuff like that. And I hadn't talked to him in a few years, and he reached out to me a couple of years ago when I first moved to Eugene, and we were always staying in touch and was hoping to like run into each other eventually. And then I tried to like contact him or just see what he was doing like a few months ago, and then I saw that his like Facebook page was down or something, and or his Instagram was down, and I had to like try to research his mom and his brother and stuff, and eventually found out that he died like in March, and it just like hit me so hard because I don't think there's too many, if anyone, that like I know, or at least I was like that close with, who passed away, like that wasn't like 70 or 80 years old, who you would kind of expect to go soon.
Yeah, it can be really shocking.
But I mean, just those first few months of Denver was so hard for me. But to have him there, and he got me into Kid Cudi, and I think that was just like, he's one of those artists that really like, he makes you feel the way drugs make people feel without the drugs. And he can like really, he really connects his Kid Cudi. He's taken psychedelics and things like that, and he obviously talks about that and weed and things like that. And that music was just like, from like anytime I hear anything from Man on the Moon 1 or Man on the Moon 2, just takes me right back to just hanging around Colorado Springs, with Chase, and just getting into like crazy things. And I mean, I was like 21, 22 at the time, and he's 18, 19. So we're kind of on two different ends of like our college careers, but he kind of like made me young and made me feel like I don't have to be like this like 21, 22 year old. I can just hang out with these kids, and I don't have to feel like that guy, which is cool because you never really know like how you're gonna meet those friends that are like really gonna stick with you. Like, I mean, that one was just so random. Like, there was no reason for me to be out in this school. It's so weird because like I left Maryland and I went to Colorado, and I was like, I want to get into film. Like, I was just like really into like TV and movies at that point. And so I was like just gonna go take some classes at this community college, but they let me stay in the dorms at University of Colorado Springs. So I wasn't even going to school there. I was just like just staying there, and then just happened to know that run into this kid in the hallway one day, and my life just changed so much after that, just because all the things he introduced me to, and then just just being around people that I wasn't used to, like people with like a lot of money with these like huge houses and huge properties. I was like, this is just really cool, because I would assume that people that come out of that would not be anything like Chase was. He was just so different from what you would find. And even though there's a few things that I just didn't agree with, like just like weightlifting and creatine and just trying to get like really bulk and things like that, and fast cars.
Yeah.
So it's like it's like one of those like yin yang, like opposites. Like
Uh-huh.
there's no real reason why we should be friends, but we're just like, but we are, and we're like really good friends. It's almost like
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I've been watching a lot of like mafia shows lately. So like The Godfather of Harlem, there's Bumpy Johnson, which is like this like big like drug dealer in like the 60s, and then he was like best friends with like Malcolm X, and it's like just like I guess like their outlook on life and what they wanted to do in order to like um I don't know, it's kind of hard because one guy is selling drugs, the other guy is trying to promote like equality of black people with maybe like the notion of or like um responding violence with violence. Um but kind of like they really probably shouldn't be best friends per se, because they just have, you know, he's selling people heroin to his own people, and which is killing them and maybe making it harder for people in his city to really evolve, because you have crackheads or people out there like really bringing down everyone, or just making it difficult for families to grow and be safe in an environment. And then you have a guy who's totally against drugs, and is trying to liberate his people in an entirely different fashion. But
Mm-hmm.
like how these two come together and how they like actually like stick together, you know, knowing that the other one just has totally just different ways of seeing the world. But at the end, they can still, talk to each other. They can be a family together without putting the other guy down. It's almost like we were talking about earlier, where you just kind of have to listen to what the person says, not put it together with who you think they are based on their
Yeah,
past.
separate it out,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, I feel like it always comes down to being more in the moment. Because when you're judging someone, you're in the past. About
yeah,
like you wouldn't be able to judge them if you're in the moment completely. So just like keep coming back to that.
yeah. And yeah, I try to. It's crazy. Every time I like try to do like a yoga class, I try and get a decent meditation in during the class, and that's one of the things I really preach, is trying to be in the present moment. And I try to
Yeah,
explain as fast as I can during a yoga class, where you
yeah.
have to talk nice and slow
Oh, that's good yoga
with a
talk.
good rhythm.
Nice.
And it's just like, and I have so much to say, especially like, with Dispenza's always in my ears all the time. And I'm like, I want you all to know exactly what I know, just because I know it's going to help you. But that thing about being present is just so important, because especially like when you wake up in the morning and you can predict the feeling of everything that's going to happen in your day, you're already you're already in the machine. Like it's hard to really pull yourself out. But
Mm.
with meditation in the morning, and I I knew it was the time, because like last night I was watching something and a commercial came on, and it was that brand new day song, like honey, it's a brand new day, huh? Ain't no clouds hanging over me, something something something. But like Dispenza always plays that song, or like those types of songs at his retreats. So it's like 5 in the morning, and people are just like, "Good morning, nah nah nah, good morning,"
The vibes
and it
get
just
super high.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it's
it's
just like
nice.
it makes me so excited, because one, like I can't wait to go back to a retreat and be around that family that I created
Mm.
on that side, because um and I was just thinking about it the other day. It's like I thought I was familiar with psychedelic experiences until I went to do my first advanced follow up retreat with Dispenza, and after the first or second meditation, I got up and I could have swore I was like, this is not this is different. This is so different. It's like to the point where you can kind of like you can see the waves, you can see the energy around the room, and it
Mm.
was kind of similar to like being at a Dead show, or especially like the last night at Soldier Field during the Fare Thee Well, or where it was like this might be the last Grateful Dead show, or a quote unquote Grateful Dead show with that name. forever. And the energy in Soldier Field with like 80,000 people,
Oh man,
it was
I
just,
can only imagine.
it's so crazy because it's like before you get into the scene, the word energy is just like, it doesn't really have too much of a meaning. At least not in like that regards where you're feeling it, you're sensing it. Sometimes you can actually see the energy and like in waves. Um, and then that connection with everyone because we're all on the same frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And when everyone's on the same frequency, that means whatever area that you're all occupying at that time, it's gonna elevate, and then those
Really,
waves are gonna build on each of those waves, and they're just gonna keep amplifying and
and
amplifying
you're
and
feeling
amplifying.
that oneness with everyone.
Yeah,
It's pretty magical.
it is. It's addicting.
Yeah.
Because like you wanna keep going back, but then I gotta learn how to come back and create it here on my own, and find my
Find ways to weave it into your daily routine, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's the trick.
But yeah, I can't wait for my next retreat. Can't wait to keep going deeper into the yoga practice. And if you are around Eugene, I teach Tuesdays at Common Bond Yoga in Springfield, and
Nice.
Fridays at the Y at 5:30 for flow yoga, and then 6:45 on Wednesdays for some Yin yoga at the Y.
Nice. How do you like the new Y building? Is it pretty?
It's very, very nice. The only thing I would say is like their entrance thing is kind of wackadoo.
Some weird feng shui, maybe?
Yeah, it's just they have like the people that go into the Y kind of have to like cross the people coming out of the Y. So there's just some points where there's just like a lot of traffic and kind of just gets a little weird. But
wonky.
other than that, I mean, they have the sauna and hot tub. They have these. They have a hydro chair and a cryo chair.
Huh.
I really like the cryo. Like the whole, it's just like a regular massage chair. But it gets like super cold super fast, or it gets super hot. But usually you just have like maybe like the top half, and then top half hot, bottom half cold. But it feels so good on my legs, like either like post workout, or I usually try to do it before my yoga classes so I can kind of decide on where I want to take the class. Because at this point I've gotten to like basically just improving my class for the most part.
That's always the best. I mean, I feel like that's the best way, because you can feel when someone's being too rigid about it's got to be this class on this certain thing.
Yeah.
Then it just doesn't feel relaxed. So if you're improving, you're just like in the flow of what needs to happen in that moment for those people.
Yeah. I mean, I used to be like, got to do 3 breaths on this side with this pose, and then opposite side 3 breaths. And I mean, obviously, I think at the first I had to do it like that, but now I've gotten comfortable enough and have done it so many times that I can kind of just go in there and just kind of, I guess, not BS my way, but just kind of just play with it and see what's going on, how people are reacting to doing certain things. And
Nice.
it's really hard at the Y now because there's like 30 people in a class.
Oh.
Which is like, I think before that, maybe like 15 was the most that you would have.
So all of a sudden your class size doubles.
Yeah, and I would assume it's probably like when the Dead started playing these big stadiums rather than
Right.
these like small venues where it's like
Right.
you're not really interacting so much with the crowd rather than just going up on there and just doing what you've been practicing to do all the time. Just because there's just like, it's just so hard to communicate with someone, 30,000, 100 yards away. But even in these classes, it's like I there's a really good chance I'm not going to remember anyone's name. Because one, there's a really the check-in process. Like if you're in the Y, then you're checked in. So I really don't even need to know your name.
Right.
So there's like, I wish that was a little bit different. And then obviously, everything's just like brand new. So it's like really nice and fresh. And there's what is it? Oh, they have these, and they have like 4 or 5 like different, or no, like 3 or 4 different like yoga type studio rooms, and one of them they have the things like where you can like hang from the wall, hang from the ceiling on. Um, what do they call? Sorry.
I forget what those are called too, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I mean, I haven't done all of those yet, but I'm really excited to just like try different things that the Y offers and see, because I remember just like driving by it one day, I saw people like dancing and things like that. So I always want to like just try like this random classes and see how fun it is or how much I can get out of my comfort zone. Um, but it's just cool that it's there. It's right next to Sundance, so I can
Yeah.
just pop over there, get
Love that. Great location. It's
Yeah.
probably going to be good for Sundance too.
Yeah.
More customers over there.
And then like the very little theaters right across the street, and that's where I popped into improv like this time last Saturday.
Oh, so they have an improv class over there.
Yeah,
Nice.
I think they should have one open to the public in like early February.
Okay.
I popped in. I saw them like on KEZI, and they were like, this time every Saturday, and I just like popped in. They're like, no, this isn't for just anybody, but you can stay for today, and which is really cool because like I really just wanted to just mess around and just do some improv, and
Yeah,
they let me
nice.
just jump in right away and
that's
participate for the day. But then they told me that they had like an actual like meetup group for improv in Eugene,
Yeah.
and that meets like right near my like walking distance from my house, right next to the right across the street from the fairgrounds,
Oh, cool.
and like this like little tiny building.
Oh, yeah. It's the third time I've heard that building mentioned in the last week.
And it's so weird because like I don't think I've ever seen that building, even though I drive past it like
Right.
every day.
It's so off the radar.
Like I thought it was like that little school thing that was right there, that I have no idea what is even used for.
Yeah.
So that's cool because I haven't done improv in like 2 years, at least like not in that way where we're like playing games and things like that. And it's like
Yeah.
so fun just to get back in that moment. But when I was like listening to your podcast where you're just like where you're talking about, sometimes you have something that you want to do during the improv, and then sometimes you're like thinking like, oh man, I wish I would have done that, or like, oh, I missed my opportunity and it would have been so good to
Yeah.
say this during that.
You can get caught up on so much of that.
But it's like your mind's just like, it's almost like when people are doing like double dutch and you have to like jump into like the rope like
Oh,
at the
yeah.
perfect time.
I always found that so mind bending how they're doing that and like not scared of getting hit by the.
Yeah. But it's like if like going in improv, you're like, oh, I want to say this, but like if that timing's not right, it just doesn't work. You just gotta let it go, because it's like,
Yeah.
if you're like always holding on to it, it's just gonna be hard, because especially with like a lot of games, you gotta have to be like thinking while you're performing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like doing the stomach rub and the head tap at the same time. It's like you have to be so like loose with what you want to do.
I think that's what it comes down to, is being loose.
Yeah.
Just letting it flow.
But it's I can't wait. I think that's what I'm going to be looking forward to. And then maybe hopefully just it'd be fun to like find a group of people that would like want to
Like
get into like doing stuff.
Start
like,
a troop maybe.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because like when I went to my first class, which is like I'm like coming into the class like 2 weeks into it, and she's like, yeah, just work with this guy. We're gonna improv a scene based on some play called like the Thanksgiving play about like like actual origins of Thanksgiving. And I mean, within like 10 seconds of him like explaining to me about what the play is about and what he wants to do, I'm like, dude, I already have like I have a script and we're ready to go. And within an hour, like me and him were like ready to go and perform our piece, and everyone else was kind of like they've already had like a day or a class time or two to like write everything down. And I was just like, it came so naturally to me, just like the act of like having an idea, being able to like see it, like picture it in my head, and like, and then have it come out like the way we kind of envisioned it. Because she was like, just do like a 3-minute piece, and ours was like 6 minutes long or something. But it was just like so funny because like we're practicing and I'm being just like so animated and things like that, and then we do like feedback afterwards, and they're like, yeah, he's like just like my body like the way like I'm positioning my body, the way I use my words and my hands and things like that. It's just like tells so much more of the story than my words would have, which gives me more. Gives me more. Oh, I'm losing my words. Not power. Confidence to keep doing, to see what I can come up with, like, because that was just like a really random thing that was like placed with, but I made it work really quick, and created something that like we could probably have done like an actual like skit or like a YouTube video or something could have actually been decently funny. So I like that, just like that options of like, one, being around people who are in that class, or like, one, they're motivated a little bit to explore those like options, because if I was like, oh, any of my friends, you want to put on a little skit or do a little improv, they're like, oh, I think we're good.
I'd be down. Do you have any characters that you have kind of in your back pocket you can pull out, or is it more just based on the moment you make them up?
No, I have this. I don't even say he's a character, but it's just like probably this guy that like it kind of sounds like he's from like Australia, mate. But like he pops strawberries straight in the mouth. He doesn't even chew them, mate. Just pops them in his mouth like cherries. Fucking awesome. I don't know. That was pretty bad.
Oh, that's fun. I like it.
But I mean, I've always been, especially like this last month, I've just been like writing down like really random things, just to
sort of collecting right now.
Yeah, some of them are like stand-up ideas, some of them are like skit ideas, like television idea or like series ideas.
Oh, cool.
So it's cool to have this like influx of creativity.
Yeah.
But then now I just need to find some outlets and
channel it into something. I know that can be tricky when you have an excess of ideas coming at you, and then you're trying to document them all and collect them all, but then how do you route them into something that you can actually follow through on all the way to completion, right?
Yeah, because you're like, this could work in a few different places. This could work like on a show. This could work on a stage by itself.
Getting all these different puzzle pieces at different times, maybe.
But I mean, just like I watch like a lot of like The Office. And every time they come out with like these like super fan episodes, I get right back into like watching The Office. And one of the biggest things is like Steve Carell, like the main character, Michael Scott, like his ambition for like wanting to be like a movie star or like a big like comedy star is just, that's probably one of the things that are like really intriguing, because he's like, oh yeah, like, I have like my HBO comedy special that, it's, how I go on, ... I have my movie, Threat Level Midnight. He has like all these things that like are like probably like not good, at least from like the sense of seeing him as this character. But like he's always thinking of like, oh, I have this in my back pocket. Like I have these things. So like whenever the opportunity arises, I'm going to be ready, because I've got my movie and I've got my stand-up special. So it's just like someone needs to give me the opportunity, and then I can just go out and just do it, because this is who I am. But I mean, just like those like types of things. And
you've been in preparation for this.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up on TV, and I definitely started reading more books once the pandemic hit. And I mean, I probably read like 30 or 40 books that first year.
Yeah.
But I mean, just like, but all those things, just like every time I'm reading something, I keep getting ideas. And the thing is, you never know where you're gonna get, like, even just like me, just like refereeing this day, I was like, there could be a show in this, like, because like I went up to one of the refs, he like works at or he goes to U of O, and I was like, I got $5 on the white team, bro. Just to see, like, that would be a good show, or not a good show, but maybe like a good skit of like these two refs who are like best friends, just like betting on this like third grade basketball game. And then like at that age level, like if we stopped the game every time someone did something wrong, the game just wouldn't exist. And then like, but if we're like just picking out the things that we want and just so that our team wins. It would be so fun if we're like,
Or
if
gets
we're
all
playing a game inside of a
it
game.
gets all serious and competitive.
Yeah, especially like at the last 2 minutes of the game where I'm trying to like actually get these kids to make a shot, and especially with like kids at that age, it's like nothing's guaranteed. So it's like,
It's just total chaos.
yeah, anytime they make a shot, you're just like, oh yeah. So I mean, and it's just like just looking at the world as like your canvas of like ideas, and just trying to be open to finding any idea and where it fits into some part of society that could be recognized
Where
in
it's
a way.
valued. Yeah, totally.
So that's going to be fun at just just to kind of get those things going, and then actually like start writing some scripts and things like that. Because
Awesome.
when I started working with Common Bond, one of our things was we want to like start like a some type of media channel for like yoga.
Yeah.
So I'd written a few skits about like an ESPN broadcaster, and then like a yogi like doing like a Sports Center like top 3, top 10 type thing, but with like yoga poses, and like this guy
That'd
who's
be
just
funny.
like all into sports and not into yoga.
That'd be funny. Yeah.
So that was cool. I mean, just like when you have those opportunities to be creative, it's
Yeah.
really fun.
I've been really wanting to do a comedy newscast that's in the style of like local TV news, but it's all comedy. It's all made up news basically, and it's
Right.
really ridiculous and over the top.
Kind of like Weekend Update, but maybe not.
Kinda, but it's more making fun of TV news in general.
Oh, okay.
So it's not really so tied to current events. It's like, but the news is all made up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of like where I'm wanting to go, is some sort of newscaster style thing. That's
Yeah.
comedy. It'd be fun.
I feel like it would be cool to like invest in a green screen and play around with that and see like what things I can come up with just on. I think the biggest thing is like trying to figure out what I can do just by myself, and like how much flexibility I have in creating something if I didn't have anyone else's help or input.
So you just have like a studio at home that you could just flip on some switches. That's a green
Yeah.
screen studio. That's full body. So that way
Yeah.
you can put on different costumes, and yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that'd be fun. And just like the process of writing, like it's weird. Like usually like the first, like with the 2 books that I wrote, the first paragraph or the first sentence are like the hardest part. After you start actually like getting an idea out, and then it just kind of just starts pouring, it just starts writing itself. But the first 2 sentences are like the hardest thing, which is so weird, because it's like, how do I start off an entire book that's like at least a little bit intriguing, where they're just gonna be like, oh, this is just dumb, and then put it down. But it's like those first like few sentences are so crucial, because
It's true.
it's like that really what catches
Sets the
audience.
tone, sets the
Yeah.
scene, right? You have to catch them early.
And then the books probably took like 21 days to write each, but like that first page probably took like a day or 2.
So last time you told us what your website was, but let's have you say it again for people that are just catching this episode.
Just go to airguitarfoundation.org, all one word. I think that's where I'll just update everything, and anything that I do, it'll be through there. And
Nice. People can follow you. And
yeah,
do you have
That's
an
it.
email list going too? People can sign up for, or
I don't. I should really.
maybe at some point.
Yeah, at some point. I gotta. Even though I was a computer guy, I am like the total opposite now. So like, I just I'm just so far behind on social media and stuff in general. Like I think I posted about this podcast like last month, but then I posted it and then I don't even touch Instagram again until I probably post about this podcast.
Which it can be such a black hole of just putting so much energy into it. And
Yeah.
so it's good to have boundaries with it. Just go
Yeah.
on there when you're inspired. But yeah, thanks a lot, Dante, for sitting down with me again. This has been a really fun part 2 of our conversation.
Yeah, this is starting to get more comfortable behind the mic.
Good. Yeah, it's a nice thing to be comfortable, and maybe we'll do a part 3 sometime.
Yeah.
Just keep it going.
Yeah, maybe pre or post the Prankster event at the Wow Hall, March 22nd and 23rd.
That's gonna be fun. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to that.
Yeah. See, it's always good to like just be around we call them OGs. I don't know why, because they're definitely pranksters, not gangsters. But yeah,
Original greatness.
yeah, there you go. It's just always an honor to be one around them, just because, you know, without them, this whole, we wouldn't be sitting here. This whole thing just wouldn't be what it is today. And then the fact that, I was more or less the prankster of the new batch.
Yeah.
It's really one really cool to like see, to be that honor, or to be that person, and to have that energy around me, because it is something that I carry with me all the time. And then
Yeah.
like I remember I got to perform on stage with George Walker at in Pennsylvania when we were showing the movie like in 2016. And I mean, that was just like, that's one of those ones where it's just like, yeah, that's probably never going to happen again. And it was just really cool for me to do it. And then I'm going to put Pudz on blast, because he was like, you got to do something exciting. And I was like, oh, I guess I'll just jump off. It was like probably like a 6-foot stage. And I jumped off, like air kicking it, and luckily didn't break any bones or didn't fall down. I think that's like the biggest thing when I do anything, is like, just don't bust your ass.
Just land it nicely.
And, yeah, and if you fall, you just got to get right back up.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I'm so honored to be one of Keezy's pranksters, and hopefully I'm doing him an honor by wearing my Garcia tie around Eugene every day, and pretty much just like trying to cover Lane Community College in tie-dye.
Yeah, I like, that's a worthy goal.
It's like every time I have an event, it's like, we got free tie-dyes, we're giving away tie-dyes, please wear your tie-dyes.
Getting more color out there, make it in a more colorful world.
Yeah, because I mean, everyone it's so I mean, I don't personally need the praise. Like, I know some people really like that, but like I don't really personally get anything out of someone like, oh, I love your thing. I mean, I appreciate it, and
Sure.
But it's more so supposed to give you that feeling of like, when I see a kid look at me and then like they get happy because they see nothing but color. That's pretty much all. Anything that I need, I don't need like praise or anything. But it is cool that people are noticing and are like, I really like, some are just like, I really, really love your outfit. It is so cool. I'm like, thanks.
That's the desired effect. It has an impact on people. That's great.
Yeah, just makes people happy. And
Uh-huh.
I would like to do that, like making them laugh, like behind a microphone or on a stage or something. But if I can just do it by just the way I dress, is also a win.
That's awesome.
And I think we can drop the mic with that.
That's a nice way to end it. Thanks again, Donte Lamar, here on the Bon Bon's Nook podcast.
See you when I see you. Peace.